How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the show, your trending topic TV talk show. It's Talking Heads. I'm your host, DJ Nees, and to my left, I have my distinguished panel. We have Aaron Kershaw and Dominic Zecca. Let's get into the action. So in White Plains, the police, or let's say the Common Council, have voted on a bill, and they want every business in White Plains to have cameras in their business and give on-demand access to the police. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We'll get into the details. But Aaron, what do you think? Let's go to you and what's your take on that?
Well, at one time in my life, I ran a business in downtown White Plains, and it was a cell phone store. So we would have that type of footage available. But at the same time, as a business owner, I want the cops to be there to help me, but I don't need a big brother looking over my shoulder. And let's say two people get into a skirmish, but I know them and they're horseplaying around. And then I have cops show up at the door just because they can't tell it's horseplay. And then my client writes. Maybe they want to buy a burner phone. Maybe they're going to buy a gift for somebody for Christmas. What if that person works in the police department? Now they're live action seeing what's going on. I don't think that there's going to be enough of a gain for the public to warrant that type of surveillance, and then the penalization of the business owners that they're talking about on top of it if you decide not to cooperate with the system.
Right. Dominic, what are your thoughts, man?
I would agree with Aaron on that. I mean, one of the things that tends to be the going trend nowadays is the ability for them to come out there and get this surveillance and access surveillance cameras from businesses. And I think that it's just another way for in some cases for the police to make it a little bit easier for themselves in cases where there's a violent crime or something of that nature. But I could see where Aaron's point is, where it can become that scenario of the big brother watching over you and enable him to do things where they don't necessarily need to get that footage or need to obtain that footage.
Right. All right. So let's go a little more in detail. So this would be something that would be mandatory for businesses, and they would have to incur the price of putting those cameras in themselves, and then give the police on-demand access. If they don't do this, they can be jailed up to 15 days and fined a maximum of $250 per day until the cameras are up and running. What's your take on that?
Well, to me, if I'm a private business owner and I have private property to where I can choose to do with it what I choose, the government should have no right to come in and say, well, you must install a security system and it must be remote accessible by us, without saying, we're going to pay for it, we're going to offer you tax breaks, anything to kind of subsidize the owner. Because if the owner feels like they don't need it, it should be a business's decision on what expenses and what expenditures they have, and there shouldn't be able to be a law put in place just to make the police lives easier. I mean, if it's a bank, if it's the type of business to where you'd want to have immediate access, different story. But if I own a stationery, or if I own a restaurant, here's a perfect example. I'm a restaurant owner. I have all this camera surveillance. People come in. They come in for business meetings. Now the police officers can see two people have met. So now they can add you to a list. If that person goes out and commits a crime, they can say, well, we saw them having lunch with so-and-so earlier in the day, let alone you going out for a date with somebody that you don't want somebody else to know about. Mm-hmm. We as American citizens, and I know me as a former Marine, that I fight for the right for privacy so that you can live as you choose, those freedoms. So to me, it would be an infringement on our freedom.
Dominic, is that unfair? 15 days, $250 a day if not put in?
It's another one of those things. It's to find a business owner and to tell a business owner that they have to do this, and if they don't do it, they're going to just keep slapping a fine on them for something that, like Aaron had said, that might necessarily be something that they need to do, or it may not be a business that they feel warrants having a camera out there for any need, and for that purpose. If a business owner only needed to install, let's say, one camera to adhere to this ruling, it might cost them more money just to put that one camera in than it would be to put in a set of cameras, let's say, within the whole establishment. And when you start looking at that, it gets costly for an owner. It's hard enough as it is, with a lot of the things that need to be done as a small business owner do those things. Some of the larger companies and some of the places that are located around here that might not have a problem with that. You know, they might already have the cameras installed, but you know, for a small business owner and the way things have been lately, it's difficult. It can become very difficult.
I would like to add, being a photographer, we have a studio of our own. How many rooms would have to have cameras in them? We have multiple rooms in the establishment, and then the type of photography I do can be sensitive in nature for my female and even male clients, whether it's a baby bump session where the mother and father are both disrobing from the waist up because they're showing these intimate scenes, or it's a lingerie shoot, or something to a sensitive nature, let alone that it's a private commercial shoot where the images are going to be used for commercial use that nobody is to see until the client decides to put them out. Now the police officers have something that they can go and check out. All these different, I mean, if you think about the evil in man, what businesses would they want to peek into?
Exactly. That's a great point, and that's what I was going to go to also, is on a broader scale. You know, what exactly would these police be looking for or turning a blind eye to? There's a lot of things that you could get into when you have that on-demand access, let alone just infringing on people's rights. But
I mean, I also think it's an infringement on your Fourth Amendment right.
Yeah.
Because illegal search and seizure, you're searching my business just by touching a button and now viewing my property. That right there, where's your warrant to have to even step foot in my business to search and look for anything? With that camera, they can probably turn it and say, well, you've actually given up your Fourth Amendment right because you've approved us having this camera here, so we can come and go as we choose and search what we need. Exactly.
So that being said, we're going to move on to something a little lighter. It's been going on a little bit overseas, Canada. They're the street lights. Providers are providing a bigger network by making the network smaller, if you will. It's going to be a street light that provides Wi-Fi, and they're working on it overseas. Vancouver has something called the V-pole, which is like an all-inclusive pole, and Ericsson and Philips are looking into doing that here. What do you think would be the advantages and disadvantages of doing something like that, Tom?
I've read up on this, and I saw a lot of this going on, and I wasn't sure that it was Vancouver, but now that you said that, I've seen that. You know, I think it's a good thing. I think it's pretty cool, but it just puts forth another thing out there that just distracts people. It just keeps their eye away from the human touch, keeps their eye away from the opportunity to just be out there and pay attention to what's going on. I mean, so many times I've see it even now. People are on their phones and they're just walking in a straight line. They don't even know that all of a sudden they're walking across the street and have no idea. I know in this case, you know, you're just at a pole and it's sitting there. You know, it's nice. I think it's pretty cool. But you know, it's just another thing that's putting us into a direction where we're breaking ourselves off of that interconnection between people.
What did you take?
What do we need it for? Because yes, I see there's already Wi-Fi in most cities. Now, Cablevision, whenever you sign up for Cablevision as a commercial business, they offer you an opportunity to have a hotspot. You'd be foolish not to take it because then you're listed on their map, so there's more interaction for people to know that your business exists. But with that, as you walk down the street, your phone will pick up whatever Wi-Fi is available. Now, if you're talking about a rural area, if I go off into a park, well, there's maybe street lamps there would be viable.
Right.
But in the downtown, I think it's overkill. And when you look at municipalities are having a hard enough time as it is making ends meet. And if they cannot quantify the budget nor find a way to make money on that investment, and it's not serving anything to public safety, there's not a need for it unless, again, the placement of it is strategic enough to complete a pre-existing Wi-Fi network and structure that's already in place. It's kind of supplemental.
I think it's a great point about the money. Supposedly, the providers are going to pay for these things, but somehow I feel like they're going to, of course, route it into the customer. We're going to be paying an extra tax or service charge on something like that, And I could see in a more rural area or a park that would be good to have that, especially in a park. That could be a safety thing. You know, if something happens, you do have service. You can call 911. They're also talking about putting cameras on those also, which I think, again, in a situation like a park, it's a safety thing. I think that would work. My big concern is how's it going to be funded? And it's a collaboration with government and business. And so, you know, where is that going to go?
Well, and then there's another layer to it as well. The layer is the power consumption. You know, right now we've gotten greener with all of our light bulbs, and even on the municipal level, now you're just going to take us back to the pre-ages where now we're drawing the same amount of consumption just because you're adding a camera in and because you're adding in the Wi-Fi. So even if the whomever pays for the actual hardware, but then there's that's the hard cost. Then there's the soft cost that could fluctuate. Currently, I mean, we went from a 6-cent kilowatt to 17-cent kilowatt because of the draw, and everybody in Westchester County has been feeling that. What's going to happen now when you add more to the power grid, and then what's going to happen in the summertime with all the air conditioners, and we've had these rolling brownouts and things of that nature. My question would be, can the existing infrastructure for Con Ed or for whomever the power supplier is, can they handle that?
Well, they're talking about some of these being green poles. So I guess they're going to be solar, so they're going to be better, so to speak. But that's a great point. Also, the power consumption is crazy. I know I've definitely felt it in my power bill lately, but I know it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this, and because like Dom said, it's one of those things where it's creating more distraction. Also, you know, if you have more Gs, 4Gs, 5Gs, whatever you have, and you want to watch your videos or do your thing, it's gonna cause a lot more distraction. You know, instead of people texting, they're watching videos or they're watching TV shows while they're watching, and then crossing streets or bumping into people or whatever the case may be.
Well, even in your car, because now if I'm driving into downtown, you can literally watch a show off your Wi-Fi while you're driving.
Yeah.
Do we really want that much Wi-Fi access? You know, granted, you can watch it with your cell phone as it stands, but it's a little more sketchy because you're moving. But now you add a complete Wi-Fi net to that, and now you have smooth streaming.
Exactly. Let's move on. Let's talk about Raymond Felton. I almost don't want to talk about this, but he was arrested for felony weapons charges. He is going to be in court on June 2nd. And talk a little bit about Felton and this distraction, if you will.
Well, just remind me a little bit of what he's done.
So basically, he turned himself in a few days ago. He was brought up on weapons charges. His wife turned in his unregistered weapon. And I guess there's been alleged domestic disputes where he not necessarily threatened her with it, but argued with it in his hand. And so she turned it in, cops arrested him.
Well, she's also, what, former Miss America or Miss Universe, right?
Miss America, I think.
So everybody has their own reasonings. If it's really about her safety, then by all means have it removed from the house. He didn't have it. If it's not registered, you shouldn't have it, period. If it were a registered weapon, it would be a whole different NRA type of conversation, but an unregistered weapon has no place in the home. And I'm, again, former military. I don't own any weapons. I know where to go if, you know, God comes to want to take everybody. But I don't own any weapons. But I would never own an unregistered weapon. So I believe, based on just that fact alone, that's an unregistered weapon, regardless of any of the other circumstances pre-existing within their marriage, the weapon should have been removed. So she did the right thing on that basis.
Yeah. Dominic, let's talk about the athletes, the drama. You know, Plexico a couple years ago had a gun, shot himself. You know, how do you feel about some of these athletes and their antics and you know, being millionaires? Why do you have an unregistered weapon? You know, how do you feel about that?
Well, you know what? I honestly think it's just a sense of power. I mean, you see what's been going on with Bieber lately, you know, and I think a lot of that has to do with, you know, how far can you push it? What's the limit? You know, what's the limit of control? What's the limit of damage you can cause without getting caught, with the knowledge of getting caught, but just the knowledge of saying, well, I got caught, yeah, but I did what I had to do, and I kind of got my hand slapped, and I'm moving forward. So I think a lot of that happens with a lot of these athletes, where they go out there and it's like to upstage their friends. It's upstage their friends that are athletes, their friends that are stars out there, and saying, well, what have you done? Oh, I got a gun in the car. I mean, a couple of years ago in a nightclub, I can't remember the rapper, that he had a gun underneath the seat, and it was unregistered. But another time, there was another one that he did have a registered gun, and the guy's like, what does that mean? You got a registered gun, you're legally allowed to carry that thing, So it's like, So I think a lot of that, I think that it's not about having the weapon for protection. I think they're having the weapon merely for a presence, just to say, I have it.
See, I disagree. I love you, buddy, but gotta disagree. Just because these are professional athletes, they walk around with more gold just in a ring and things like that. That's not, we would call it gaudy because we can't afford it. But if I can afford a $5,000 ring, I may be wearing one. Mm-hmm. These are professional athletes that, from girls that are going up to them and flirting with them, to then the pissed off boyfriend who then comes in, you got a problem, you think you're a football player. Unless they walk around with personal protection, they have to figure out a way to protect themselves. They shouldn't break the law and have unregistered weapons, as I said before. But at the same time, we don't live in that world where everybody wants to touch us and grab at us. They do. These are the heroes to a lot of people, which causes, look at the paparazzi. How the paparazzi swarms. But we don't see the pictures of the people swarming, but the people do that. And we know from, look at the Beatles, when the Beatles first came here. Now it's 50 years of the Beatles, but when they first came here, women were ripping their clothes off. A Plexico Burress may want to be challenged to a fight because he's a big guy and he's an athlete, and you know that if you punch him in his mouth or you get in a brawl, you're going to get on TV. Mm-hmm. So, and if they're walking around with large amounts of cash, it becomes one of those, I don't think it's a one-upping. I think the one-upping is who can be wilder and what they do and their antics and what they get away with. But on the protection side, if I'm out with my girlfriend, my wife, and I'm a public figure, I may want to be packing just to make sure, legally packing, but to make sure that me and myself, my family, and my friends are safe because of my own notoriety. I introduce the unknown into our lives on a daily basis.
I understand that point. I'm feeling you on that point a little bit. But honestly, I've been in restaurants where Patrick Ewing has been there, Charles Oakley has been there, James Caviezel, actor, has been there. And I think people are fairly respectful. And when these guys go out, these athletes or even the celebrities like the Bieber, they can hire security. They can hire security to carry weapons. Like if I was in that celebridom, if you will, I would have people carry my drugs, my weapons. I would have them call my women. Whatever these guys are doing, there's people that will volunteer to do it. And they can pay security. They don't need to have that.
And that's where I kind of come in and disagree. I think that the amount of money they have and what they're capable of doing, what they have, and their stardom, they can have security. They can have that private security. Because if I'm an athlete, last thing I want to do is I'm going to pull a gun and pop somebody because they got in my way or they did something and I have to deal with that. But if I have a security guard and I have somebody out there that's there for my protection, I think that's what it's there for. But
some comedians do it too. Another thing with this case is that one of Felton's charges that required mandatory time, for some reason, was not charged. I feel like if it was any one of us with an unregistered weapon, we'd probably still be in jail. We would probably get charged with that mandatory sentence of, I think it was, I believe it's 5 years minimum that you'll be charged with. And a lot of these guys get off. Why? They're just athletes. They're just celebrities. Why do they get? Maybe they have money for a better lawyer, but why are we letting these celebrities and these athletes get off? Some of them do, but some of them.
Well, money. Whether it's advertisers' money or it's the fact that they are, they're heroes to children. They're inspirational people in all walks of life. Not saying they should get a free walk, but again, military man here. So if you're going to give a free walk, give it to a military man who's actually written a check, to up to and including my life.
Right.
But to the star that just excelled at football, baseball, basketball, what have you, or even a movie star, you know, it's a different world that I hate to say it, we're never going to understand it.
Yeah.
And I would never, and I've been on the personal security guard side of things when I first came out of the military, and I never carried a weapon during it, but to go out to dinner and to do the rest, to have an entourage, a lot of people want to live like regular people. They don't want to travel with the bodyguard. Then the cost occurrence just to have somebody like that. You know, and there's business owners that I know right in New Rochelle. They have a personal security guard. He goes everywhere with them. And they become part of the family. So, yeah, you're right. People can just hire somebody and have them tag along everywhere.
And the only final I'll make a point about this is that the domestic dispute that was in question was captured on a surveillance camera that was located outside a hotel that filmed him coming out with his wife. That
was Felton, or was
that was I don't want to mention his name. That was another athlete.
Yeah, that was a football.
Was it another athlete?
That was a football player from.
Yeah, it was a football player.
Local
football
guy. All right, let's talk about this. So the Arizona governor had a choice. She recently just vetoed the anti-gay law. So again, we're talking about legislation. I don't know how this legislation gets passed through, but basically they wanted to say in Arizona that any business owner could deny openly gay couple service based on their religious beliefs. How do you feel about that, Aaron?
You know, Arizona has a long history of that type of behavior, using religious beliefs. Originally, it started out, there was two Indians who were caught smoking peyote in the back of a church. And they utilized saying, well, it's part of our ceremonies, it's part of our religion. And once that was passed, well, that is now, you know, it's on the court records. So from that, there has been many other things. For any American to want to discriminate against another American, on a personal level, it's your choice. If I don't like you because of your color, how your hair is, or how you talk, it's my choice. But on a business level, it should never be legal, because then we're going back to the Jim Crow ages, where you got to use that door and you got to sit over there and you got to do this. And people may not realize with the Jim Crow and even sitting on the bus that northern people would get on the bus down south and sit in the back of the bus and be told you had to sit in the front of the bus. So it wasn't so much the discrimination where the black people had to sit in the back. No, it was so much so that there was your place. Whether it was the back or the front, you were told to sit there even if you didn't agree with it. Mm-hmm. And so I don't feel, again, I was in the Marine Corps. We go to fight for our freedoms and our rights. If you want to be a lesbian, gay, transsexual, you do what you need to do for what makes you happy in your life. And as a business owner, you should want all of the business that comes through.
Exactly. What are your thoughts, Dominic?
Yeah, I'm very strong on this too. I mean, you know, everyone has the right to go to any establishment and get service. I mean, I don't think a business owner has the right to say, well, I'm not going to service you because I don't believe in what you're doing, because you know, that's first and foremost, that's not the American way. We are here. We're Americans. We're proud to be Americans, and we shouldn't have laws that prevent people based on whatever the case may be. Because if you start doing that with gays and lesbians, then you're just, like Aaron said, you're just rolling back in history to anything else that we might want to say. Hey, well, let's create this law now. If we've created that law, we're going to create this law that, you know, you can't walk in a store and eat a chocolate candy bar. Yeah. Because, you know, I don't agree with my kids don't eat chocolate, and I don't want any chocolate in the store. You know, and that's kind of a far stretch, but people have the right to be who they are and to act however way they want to.
Exactly. It took till 1972 for interracial marriage to be legal.
Crazy.
Federal level, 1967 for it to be legal on a federal level, and it took many more years for the individual states to adopt it. So that wasn't even caveman era, and look what we were doing. I feel like everybody that's against gay marriage, you're just trying to take us backwards.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's not a right or left, a progressive thing. It's just the right thing.
Right. And it is Black History Month. Be nice to, but you have a few more days to be nice to black people. What actually prompted this story is something I saw on Facebook, funny enough, where it was 3 black gentlemen sitting at a white-only counter. and it was like, Arizona, you're taking us back. And I was like, wow. I was like, that was pretty powerful. I was like, that's just crazy. And the reason this bill came about is because there was some businesses that did refuse to it was a florist, there was a
photographer too.
Yeah, photographer. There was a baker, and they were actually sued. And then they decided to make a bill over it, which is we have to figure out what's going on with our lawmakers here and how they come up with their legislation.
Well, I think it's larger than the United States, because Canada's having that problem as well. Canada went open-ended. Everybody, come on in, come to us, come to us. And now what they're finding, there was a lesbian who went into a Muslim barbershop. She didn't know it was a Muslim barbershop. She just wanted to get a boy-style haircut.
Yeah.
And he refused to cut her hair because in his religion they're not allowed to touch women.
Right.
So there was this big to-do, and now it's just been settled where she got her hair cut. But this is beyond the United States. It's because the world is becoming more of that melting pot. We have to learn to live together, and we still have some of the holdouts that just want their people, their way, their thoughts, regardless of the colors, because this is, you go in a certain neighborhood, you get certain beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, even with the Olympics, Sochi, you know, the Russians were having some anti-gay stuff going on there. Unfortunately, we are out of time. We have just a minute left here. But hopefully you guys like the show. We're going to be here every week, so check us out. And we have a website. Website's still not up, but you can check us out. You know who I am. We have Aaron and Dominic here. You know who they are. If you see them out on the street, walk up to them, tell them you love the show, tell them what type of topics you want to hear about, and we'll get them on here. So on behalf of Dominic, Aaron, and myself, have a good day. We'll see you real soon. Thanks.